You have been listening to Stronger
Welcome
Than Steel
to the
podcast.
Stronger
Thank
Than
you for
Steel
joining us today, and
podcast
don't
with your
forget to
hosts
check out our
Austin
website
Davidson
listed in
and
the
John
description
Keir,
below.
talking Steelers all the time. Now, here's Austin and John.
Hello and welcome back to another edition of the Stronger Than Steel podcast. John Keir speaking, and joining me as always is my co-host Austin Davidson.
Heyo.
It's season 4, episode 36. The Pittsburgh Steelers are going to be on the road tomorrow night taking on the Los Angeles Chargers in their, oh man, I forgot about the name of the soccer stadium. It is called the Rokit Field at Dignity Health Sports Park. Man, oh man. Before we get to... Sorry, what was that?
I said just what a jumble of words. That's what it feels like.
It's the most, I remember we were talking a few weeks ago, it's the most creative name that we've seen to this point as far as the stadiums the Steelers will play at this year. So, Rokit Field at Dignity Health Sports Park. Average attendance for the Chargers through 3 home games this year has been just north of 25,000. So, by the way, I have to think that just, quick thoughts, knowing how Steelers Nation is and knowing that the Chargers routinely do not have a lot of home fans, I feel like this is going to be essentially a home game. You have to think there's a lot of Steelers fans in the Los Angeles area that are going to be at this game.
Oh, 100%. We know at least a whole section is going to be dedicated to Smith-Schuster's family, so there's already going to be a big group of them. And then, it should be a lot of Steelers fans there. The Steelers really travel to every stadium. This one, though, like you said, this one might have more Steelers fans than Chargers fans, if I'm being honest. That might be a little bit of an exaggeration, but I think it actually might be close. It might be like 50-50.
I actually think it's going to be closer to like 80-20 Steelers, to be honest with you.
Oh, yeah? You think even more? Okay. I thought I was exaggerating, but I think I can see that.
Well, the way I'm seeing it is you have almost an entire generation of fans that didn't have a team in Los Angeles, and the Steelers being one of the popular teams in the NFL. This is the first time they'll play in LA in how long? When was the last time the Steelers played in Los Angeles? That's a question we probably should have considered, because it's been at least since the Rams or Raiders left Los Angeles, which would have been the mid-90s, I think, at the very latest. So it's been a while. So I think there's a good amount of fans that are going to be ready and willing to come to this game.
Yeah, I can agree to that.
So that being said, the Steelers and Chargers, both having rocky starts to the season, both have experienced a ton of different injuries. Let's run through the Steelers side first. The only positive aspect of all these injuries, Austin, is that the inactive list is going to contain one healthy player. Everyone else is going to be a go, because we have a ton of injured players, starting, of course, with the guys that we knew were going to be out in fullback. Roosevelt Nix, he did not progress at all. Wide receiver James Washington is out with the shoulder injury, and Jalen Samuels is out with the knee injury as well. It looks like Anthony Chickillo will be returning to duty this week, huh? Or did I miss that?
Yep. No, Anthony Chickillo's ready, and I think that's why they felt comfortable cutting J-Ron Elliott, because they got their special teams guy back, they got their backup guy back. I think Anthony Chickillo is ready to go.
So we got those 3 guys right there. Mark Barron, who injured his hamstring last week, is out. Quarterback Mason Rudolph did practice this week, but was ruled out on Friday, so that's a 5th player. And then number 6, Steven Nelson, was questionable with a groin injury, but has been downgraded to out in the days since the final injury report came out, leaving one final inactive spot. So that being the case, now I know Vance McDonald is banged up, Chickillo's coming off injury. Where do you think this one inactive is going to come from?
I'm thinking it might be Zach Gentry again, and I feel uneasy about that because I feel like the Steelers need as much help in the pass-catching area as possible, but I feel like he's still going to be the guy. It's going to depend on how they feel about Vance. Vance doesn't have an injury designation, which is a good sign. He was a full go on Friday after not participating on Wednesday or Thursday's practice. But I feel like Gentry is going to be that healthy scratch anyway, if I had to bet on it. Who do you think?
If it's not Gentry, I think it's going to be one of the linemen, being either Okorafor or Isaiah Buggs. Probably Okorafor.
Yeah, or core four would make sense since Zach Banner's been playing the swing tackle.
So that being said, we've already known about Washington, Nix, and Samuels, and Barron for the most part. With Barron, it's pretty simple. Vince Williams will take his spot on the inside there. We've already talked about Roosevelt Nix being out. Jalen Samuels will be spelled by Benny Snell, and in special teams it'll be Trey Edmonds. Wide receiver is interesting, though, because James Washington has been the splitting time at the Z with Johnny Holton, which means we could be seeing a lot more of Holton this week, which is not a good thing based on what we've seen from him this year.
I'm hoping something else. I don't even know what I'm hoping, because the other option is to move Moncrief back into the starting lineup, and that doesn't make me feel good either. And Ryan Switzer getting more snaps doesn't make me feel good. Johnny, the wide receiver room just sucks right now. I feel like they should have brought Eli Rogers back, if not just for this game, and just cut Johnny Holton. But I don't know. Rogers is just a black guy anyway, so I guess it wouldn't have helped when you need help at the Z. But it's just, I don't know. I feel like you need to run different formations where you could get Eli Rogers and and Juju Smith-Schuster on the field at the same time. Maybe two slot wide receivers out there, even though maybe not in the slot. You know what I'm saying? I don't like the wide receiver room going into this game.
Well, what you could do to help facilitate things is you could still run empty sets, but you could do it like the way the Patriots do it with 22 personnel, and you could have the two tight ends. You could have a couple running backs and maybe one receiver split out wide, so it will spread the field out and get guys in space, but you're not relying on a Johnny Holton, where instead you're relying on maybe a James Conner.
Yeah, I think I'd feel more comfortable with that, because at least James Conner I've seen get some pretty good yards after the catch.
And a deep shot to Holton still has not worked yet this year. Part of that has been who's been throwing him the ball. It's been at least two different quarterbacks. I can't remember if one of Devlin Hodges' passes on Sunday's game went to Holton. I don't believe it did, but if it's going to happen, if there's going to be another pass attempt thrown Holton's way, it's going to come from Devlin Duck Hodges, and we can talk about him in a moment, but Mason Rudolph declared out, so Duck Dynasty, his time is now.
Yeah, it's the Duck Dynasty time, man. Just to go back to Johnny Holton for a second, I'm just hoping for him to just draw a PI penalty that's not on him. That's all I ask of him now. My expectations are so low. I just want anything. What if it's 6 attempts to him, all dropped, all out of his reach, all useless? I think it's 6. It might be 7. Regardless, 7 and a penalty. Granted, I will say that always that penalty was trash. But regardless, it's still a penalty on him, an offensive OPI is what. But it's Duck Dynasty time, baby. Undrafted free agent Devlin Hodges out of Samford, which I honestly, until Devlin Hodges was drafted, I've never heard of Samford. Don't even know where it is. Still don't know where it is. It's just, I guess we just gotta hope for something. The Steelers saw something in him. He had really good preseason, really good training camp. Even got some snaps later on in the game. They decided that Hodges would be good enough so that they could trade Dobbs and bring him back as practice squad member, and now here he is getting his first career NFL start. So let's hope for something great out of him. He's the one that dethroned McNair in the FCS level with all McNair's stats. So there's hoping for something. Difference is McNair was a third overall pick and Devlin Hodges was undrafted. So my hopes aren't exactly. My expectations aren't high, but my hopes are.
Samford is located in Homewood, Alabama.
For some reason, I think we looked this up. I feel like now that you say that, it sounds familiar.
Well, regardless, he was obviously a very accomplished college quarterback, even at the FCS level. And, now that I'm talking about it, oh, crap, what was it? Bill Parcells. It was his checklist, right? The six different things. I need to look this up. It's like the checklist for Bill Parcells, like the 6 things. Here it is. Be a 3-year starter in college, be a senior in college, graduate from college, start 30 games, win 23 games, post a 2-to-1 touchdowns to interceptions ratio, and complete at least 60% of your passes that were thrown. And Devlin Hodges checks all those boxes. Now, I want to say one thing. Now, because he is at the FCS level, maybe that should be graded on a bit of a curve, but I have to say, I mean, that's still pretty encouraging to see.
So here's my thoughts on that. You're still playing with FCS level wide receivers and FCS level tight ends and FCS level offensive line. So I like to think it scales because it's not just, this quarterback is playing with not, he's not so good and he's playing against with really good players. Like, all the players are kind of scaled. And so I think that it does scale up because, like, we saw it with McNair. McNair went up. Carson Wentz, we saw that. I feel like if you're good, yeah, I mean, with the NFL and with draft picks, it's always, I feel like, random. Like, these guys that are guarantees end up busts, and guys that are considered late-round picks end up amazing. It's just how the life of the NFL works. But I feel the FCS level doesn't actually even bother me because I feel like the rest of the team is also FCS level, and, like, he works with that. He was able to do so well with FCS level players. So I feel good. I feel good about Devlin Hodges.
Well, I'm double checking all those stats now. I don't know. Okay, he started. It doesn't have a starting statistic. It has games played. He played in 45 games over 5 years. He played in one game his freshman year, which I believe was a redshirt season. So, based on what I'm looking at here, I think it's safe to assume that he started at least 30 games, right?
Yeah. No, people have been saying he checked all these.
We already know that he was a senior and that he graduated from college. Based on the wins that Samford had over the 4 years he was a starter, they won 27 games. So I'm pretty sure it's a safe bet that he also checks that box. He threw 111 touchdowns to 43 interceptions, so that's right, and he completed 69% of his passes. And we already know that he was a 3-year starter. So yeah, all 6 of those boxes are checked. So if you asked Bill Parcells if he was surprised at Devlin Hodges looking good on Sunday, he probably would tell you that he wasn't that surprised, which is, kind of interesting. And you know what? I guess that's something that we should probably start to look at ourselves, or at least we should take a look at in the offseason, just how accurate that is.
Yeah, it'd be pretty cool. Look back at the quarterbacks that actually did succeed with those qualifications. But regardless, the only real knock on Hodges right now is he, besides playing at the FCS level, which can be, it doesn't have to be taken as knock, but he just doesn't have an arm, like a cannon arm. Like, he's not a Paxton. He doesn't have Paxton Lynch's arm in his backup, but I mean, he's going to be more accurate than Paxton Lynch. He doesn't have Mahomes, Lynch, these guys with Drew Lock. These guys are just big arms. And that's, like, I feel like his biggest knock, which honestly, to me, isn't the worst to me. If he can manage the game well enough, I'm happy with that.
Well, it's similar. Nah, granted, I didn't like this quarterback coming out, Will Grier, but something that was similar about them is that they didn't have super live arms, but they were good leaders. They had, good body language, and they were, respected players off the field that also weren't afraid to make throws into tight windows. And of course, at this level, you can get picked off doing that more easily if you're a little too cocky with what isn't the most talented arm. But it's not something I'm super concerned about because I think that a guy with his starting experience is a little closer to maybe more of what a mature quarterback would do when it comes to making better decisions. I mean, then again, he did have 2 questionable throws last week. One of them was intercepted by Earl Thomas that was taken away via penalty. But, at the same time, with the way the Steelers are right now at a 1-4 record, another loss in either of the next 2 games more than likely eliminates them entirely from the playoff consideration. Not that it's likely anyways at this point. You need to turn it loose, and we've been saying it all week that Hodges is someone that will do that.
Yeah, that's a good thing. And honestly, even with those 2 disappointing throws, as the week progressed, and this week after the game, I just became more and more impressed with Devlin Hodges. What we saw from Hodges and what we learned is that Hodges got no reps with like Juju Smith-Schuster or anything going into that game. The scout team quarterback was Terrion Christensen, or I forget how his name is said, but regardless. And he didn't get any 7-on-7 reps, any 11-on-11, and no 11-on-11 in training camp with Juju at all. Like, he had never completed a pass to Juju, and he was playing with confidence. There was a big-time throw he made where he threw to a wide receiver before the wide receiver made his break and threw it right on point. And I believe that was to Juju.
That was Deontay Johnson. I think that was the first third down he faced. It was a quick outbreaking route, and he threw it with perfect timing, which is, something that usually you see after a lot of practice reps, but apparently Duck Hodges doesn't need practice.
Duck Hodges doesn't need practice. This is that's funny, but yeah. So my mistake. It was Deontay Johnson. After I said it, sounded a little bit weird, but regardless, he plays with confidence. I like that, and I feel good this week because of that. I feel like he showed a lot more good than bad in his impromptu start that he got. So I like that he got a week full of practice where he actually got to play with the first teamers and stuff and actually get practice in, because now I just feel better. I felt like when he came in, he played well last week, even despite those forgetfulness. So I feel good.
The only other injury of note for the Steelers is starting cornerback Steven Nelson, who's been a lockdown corner this year, is going to be out with the groin injury, meaning it's Artie Burns' season once more. Artie Burns will get his first start since Week 15 against the Patriots last season. Burns has barely played any defense, only 2 snaps this season, and I think just a total of 4 or 5 snaps in general since that start, because remember that long touchdown was given up against the Patriots and the Steelers benched him after that.
Yeah, man. I'm not looking forward to this. I don't. The idea that I feel like I'd almost. Don't take me seriously here, but I almost rather a linebacker on Keenan Allen again. Obviously Joe Hayden's probably gonna be the one on Keenan Allen. Maybe might be shadowing him a little bit, but like even Artie Burns on Mike Williams doesn't really make me feel good because it's just such. It feels like such a mismatch. I don't know. I don't feel good at all. I hope Minka Fitzpatrick gets to mirror one of the wide receivers, gets down and just plays man coverage against one of them, from the box, basically. That's what I'm hoping here, because this doesn't make me feel good. I say it every time that Artie Burns has to start. I hope the best for him. I really want him to do amazing. I want him to come out and be like, this is it. I'm breaking out. I'm going to be what I was drafted to be. I'm developed enough into that guy, but I don't have that hope anymore. It's just, because I like him as a person, I really want him to do good. I want him to be able to get a nice contract after this year with another team so that the Steelers get a good comp pick, or even trade him later this season, which that's at the moment definitely not happening. So I guess I never know. We saw, what's his name? The offensive tackle that got traded, Terrell Hawkins, never mind. We saw Terrell Hawkins get traded for something, so I guess you never know. And Eli Apple, his draft mate, got traded for like a 4th and a 6th, from what I remember, and that was so much to me. And I was like, if Eli Apple can get traded, so can him. So I guess I don't know, but he's playing for his NFL career going forward. He's playing for possibly the Steelers comp pick. He's playing possibly for the a trade pick. I don't know. I'm hoping the best for Artie Burns here going into this game. He also is playing for the Steelers playoff hopes. So I want a good big game out of this guy.
Well, it's his last chance, at least with the Steelers. He's run out of options, and speaking of options, it was declined. You had mentioned Gerald Hawkins. By the way, I saw on Twitter that he might be starting this week.
That is a big move against the Saints. No, that was last
Panthers.
week. Against the Panthers at 9:30 a.m., right?
Yep, in London.
Oh Lord. Mario Addison going to eat him. He's going to die.
Don't talk about our man's Gerald like that. Leave him alone.
He won't get injured.
Come on, man.
Yep.
We'll get to that later when we get to the Panthers game, though. I'll confirm that later for you. The Chargers side, they have a lot of injuries of their own. I'll cover a couple of them really quickly. The big names on this list are tight end Hunter Henry, who has not played since the season opener. He was, I think you said, a full participant on Friday, so it's looking like he'll return. Their pass rusher Melvin Ingram has a hamstring injury. He was limited on Friday and is questionable. Him not playing would be huge. And backup running back Justin Jackson, who burned the Steelers last year, is doubtful with a calf injury. He likely won't play. Kicker Michael Badgley, I believe is how you say that name, has a groin injury, and he's doubtful. And that kicking situation in LA is just more and more bizarre. I don't understand what's going on.
Yeah, they're having their kicker/punt. They're having their punter act as both the punter and the kicker. No NFL team does this. I mean, it's actually worked so far for them. I believe their kicking stats aren't actually that bad comparatively. Like, they've always had a bad kicking situation. Not always, but like the past 4 years, it feels like they've been in a bottom team in that kind of stuff. But
I think it's because the guy that does it, I forget what's his name, the punter, Ty Long. It's because I think he used to do that. He went to Alabama Birmingham. I think he might have done that in college, which is why he's at least somewhat comfortable with it, Yeah,
the Chargers might be starting a trend. Who knows? Instead of wasting 2 roster spots on a kicker and a punter, you can have it at the same time. But I feel like there's a reason 31 of their teams keep a specialist for each. Probably because if you get them hurt, you're screwed in both parts of the game.
Think about what we might be stumbling upon if the Chargers have indeed started a new trend. No longer will we have punters being holders. Instead of having literally any other player do it, it's going to become a specialized position just like the long snapper, and it's just going to be a holder, a guy that just comes on and holds the ball on field goal snaps, and the Steelers will draft one in the 4th round.
Yeah, the next Colin Holba of that. I don't know, though. I feel like after punters, for the Chargers specifically, I've seen Phillip Rivers hold it. I think you could have your quarterback do it.
Actually, that's the way it used to be for a long time. As quarterbacks, you might remember Tony Romo, that infamous muffed field goal attempt in the playoffs. But quarterbacks used to do that all the time. It wasn't until about 20 years ago where punters started doing it more often. But, you go back to Super Bowl X for the Cowboys, I think they had one of their safeties, I forget his name, I think Randy Hughes was the holder. A safety was the holder. So you'll have anyone that knows how to do it and can do it will do it. But typically it's something that punters are asked to do because, they're usually not doing much else besides punting. So, yeah.
Yeah, man. And it makes sense.
Any other further thoughts on the Chargers injury report? Safety Nazir Adderley has a hamstring injury, is doubtful, and so is wide receiver Andre Patton, who has a quad injury and is also doubtful.
Just that the Chargers are one safety injury away from Desmond King starting, which would actually, not that I'm hoping for an injury, but that'd be really ideal for the Steelers because you moved Desmond King out of his natural position as a cornerback. And last year I felt like Desmond King, not just as a cornerback, though, actually played really well against the Steelers in their comeback. He had that controversial, was it a punt return touchdown?
It was a punt return touchdown.
Controversial punt return touchdown with the no call on Brian Allen for the block back, but it'd be huge to get him out of position and into the safety position because I feel like that you could attack that immediately. You could attack the cornerback position and him moving to safety. So just watch out. The Chargers haven't been a very lucky team with injuries, especially the safety. They lost Derwin James early on. They've now lost Adrian Phillips, who is Derwin James' backup. Then they don't have Nasir Adderley this week, which is a pretty high draft pick. He was right in the 2nd round, early 2nd round at that. So just watch out for their thin safety group. They're, as I said, thin there.
As far as Steelers news and notes, we have a couple things to catch up on. A couple roster moves were made. The Steelers, in order to get a backup quarterback for Devlin Hodges, they signed quarterback Paxton Lynch off the practice squad, as well as running back Trey Edmonds to replace Jalen Samuels, who is now injured. In corresponding moves there, the Steelers released offensive lineman Fred Johnson and outside linebacker Jayrone Elliott. The Elliott move to release him was not surprising. Fred Johnson was a little bit, but I do understand why it was done, just because that was the serious surplus on the team, but I got to tell you I'm nervous because I think teams like Cincinnati and Cleveland are looking around at their horrible offensive lines. They look at a young guy like that, where Pittsburgh has recently developed a lot of great players on the offensive line, and I have to think they'd be chopping at the bit. And you remember the last time the Steelers released a young up-and-coming player in Tuzar Skipper, they did it towards the end of the week, going into the weekend, hoping that teams would have their roster set. The Giants had an open roster spot and claimed him.
And the Giants are still a team that could claim Fred Johnson again. That would just really piss me off really good. And I said it on the last podcast, if you had to cut Fred Johnson, you better have been trying to trade him first. I just don't feel confident about him making it back. I know that what they're betting on is, we're going to be able to get him back, but they shouldn't have bet on that. They should have traded him for a late-round pick or just something, just to I guarantee they could have gotten something. I'm a little upset with this move, but I understand, though. The problem is you really needed those backups. You needed Paxton Lynch. There was no way around it. Your only other quarterback on the roster is your emergency quarterback, and that's Ryan Switzer. So, you needed a quarterback. The Trey Edmonds one, I thought was a good move as well, because I feel like it bolsters the special teams, but really comes down to there's no other position you could really cut, and that really sucks. But I still hold that I think they could have traded Fred Johnson. If you using it for the second time in this podcast, if you could trade Jarrell Hawkins, who has shown nothing with injury, you could trade a interesting young prospect that could develop into something interesting that the Steelers found interesting enough to keep around when they already have a good enough offensive line. So I disagree with this move, and I fully expect Fred Johnson to be picked up on waivers, and I expect 2 or 3 waiver claims for him.
I think it's the one issue that you run into when you're trying to trade someone is that the Steelers weren't sure if they were going to need to cut Johnson, and when they found out that they were going to have to, that doesn't leave you much time to have to try to trade him. And if you're trying to trade him that quickly, a team is going to know that you're going to end up cutting him anyways. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. Why I'm thinking, partially anyways, why he wasn't traded.
Yeah, but I feel like if you're not one of the teams that's putting, like you said, Cincinnati is probably I think Cincinnati currently ranks first on the draft order. So assuming Cincinnati loses to the Bengals, to the Ravens this week, they should be the first team to be able to get a crack at it. Maybe if you're the Browns, which we've seen trades with the Browns happen, you put in that trade request because you know you want him on your team more. Also, the Giants could want it over the Bengals, those teams. I feel like you don't make the trade because you think you're going to get him. You make the trade because you think someone else will before you do.
I see. Well, regardless, the move has been made, and now we sit and wait to see if both players will be able to circle back. One last bit of news. It's a double-sided thing. Number one is Earl Thomas was fined $21,000 for his hit on Mason Rudolph that left him unconscious and with a concussion. And Stephon Tuitt was fined the same amount for his late hit out of bounds on Lamar Jackson. Any thoughts on... Well, I guess first... with Thomas, because I was hammering this home at the time that he should have been ejected from the game. Is that also how you felt?
I was 50-50. If I'm being honest, I didn't really have an opinion on it. I felt because there's no way to look at intent. I feel like you just have to make your best judgment there, but you can't really look at intent. With Earl Thomas, it did look like it was a malicious hit, but I don't know. I was kind of 50-50.
Now that time has passed, I'm less convinced that it should have been something that should have gotten him ejected, because I think I was referred to a hit by Bud Dupree that he laid on Russell Wilson a couple weeks ago that I thought was far more egregious, and he also wasn't thrown out. So I guess what I'm looking for here, because college football does have the targeting ejection rule where they will review plays like that and will eject players for stuff like that. I just need more uniformed consistency, which I know from the NFL is a lot to ask for, but I just need to know how much how many, like, are we going to be allowing headshots still? Like, is there going to be a zero tolerance policy? I feel like there's less of a defined, I still feel like there's a gray area because Rudolph was barely touched on the helmet earlier in the game, and they got a 15-yard penalty. And then in this game, it took Rudolph being down and basically motionless for about 20 seconds for the officials to finally throw the flag. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I feel you. I feel like the refs need to be held accountable. I think we talked about this last podcast, but like they just haven't been consistent. They need to get on the same page, and I think you need to make a statement if you're the NFL. Pat McAfee tweeted it out the other day to the commissioner that he should fire Al Riveron and I'm starting to agree. I think that he doesn't have his people in check. He doesn't have them in the same page. I feel like the rules are just implied willy-nilly based on from one referee group to the next. And I think that he should be fired. I really do. I think that we need to move on to a new someone else other than Riveron.
I just don't know that if Riveron's fired, if anything is going to change. I think it's the system itself that is flawed.
I think that there needs to be consistency among the groups, and I think that that's on Rivermont. Like, you have to get your guys on the same page. Like, this is what we're calling in this situation when it looks like this. If you're a ref, you got to watch tape as well. You show your employees, this is the tape, this is something I want you to call, this isn't consistent enough, this isn't that. I blame that on Riveron.
That's fair, but I don't know. I think it really just starts at the top, even higher than him. And I don't know that even if he gets fired, not that he will be, but even if he was, I'm not convinced in the slightest that it would change anything.
Yeah. You need to get someone competent, that's for sure.
Or, I know we keep harkening back to the AAF, but the Sky Judge wasn't perfect, but I like the Sky Judge a lot better than what we have right now.
That too. That would be a smart idea.
Or another thing that let's not get into this discussion right now. We'll keep this brainstorming for later. We have a game to talk about. The Chargers and Steelers, AFC foes, have faced off 33 different times, with the Steelers winning 23 of those, but the Chargers came away victorious most recently. Towards the end of last season, that was the biggest blown lead in Heinz Field history. Very disappointing game in which the Steelers jumped off sides, I think, 30 times on the final play of the game, and the Chargers came away with a 33-30 victory. And despite having, I think, just a handful of wins in Pittsburgh, 2 of those wins have come in the postseason for the Chargers, so just kind of interesting to note. This will be the first time the Steelers play the Chargers in Los Angeles. Chargers, who were based in Los Angeles in their first season of 1960, moved to San Diego in 1961 and remained there through the 2016 season. They have spent the last 2+ seasons in Los Angeles, and the last time the Steelers played at the Charger Stadium, it was in San Diego. They won that game with Michael Vick at quarterback. The Steelers at the time, number 3 quarterback, because even though he was signed late, he was brought in to replace Bruce Gradkowski, the number 2 quarterback then. So at that point, he was the number 3. And a week later, Landry Jones, the Steelers' number 4 quarterback, came into play. So it's a little bit of deja vu all over again with the Steelers and the quarterbacks.
Yeah, let's hope it goes the same way.
Absolutely. And the Steelers are going to need a similar type of clutch performance, I feel, from Hodges to be able to win this game. You look at the brief stats overview, the Steelers' defense has kind of gotten back to the mean over the last couple weeks throughout the rest of the league. The offense still lagging behind. The Chargers have pretty solid statistics, but they're struggling too at just 2-3. So when looking at the Los Angeles Chargers, let's start with their defense and the Steelers' offense. We already know about the Steelers' offense. Now on quarterback number 4 this season, or 3 if you, I guess, Josh Dobbs didn't play at all this season, so I guess he's technically quarterback number 3. But the offense has not found much consistency. The ground game has been sputtering all year and just haven't been able to sustain drives. And when they have been given opportunities with turnovers, they haven't been cashing in as much as they've needed to. leading to that 1-4 record. So you look at the Chargers defense, it has a couple names on it, but this is a unit you can move the ball on and a unit that will give up the big play. So what are you doing? If you were Randy Fichtner, what were you supposed to be doing this week? How would you be preparing for this defense?
If I'm preparing for this defense, I'm trying, because what their defense is best at least statistically, is they're really good against the pass. I'm scheming, trying to get James Conner going. I know it hasn't worked so far this year. James Conner really hasn't been that back, but I'm really trying to get the offensive line and James Conner on the same page, because I feel like the offensive line hasn't been doing a really good job at run blocking either. But like I said, Conner's not been good, but this is what I'm trying to do. I'm going into this game thinking I'm going to try and pound it against them, because I feel like Conner could have his breakout game. I feel like I've been saying this for like 5 weeks, but I feel like this could be his game where he's able to rush on this team. They're no slums though. They're not terrible. They're ranked 18th against the run. They're giving up 119.8 rush yards per game statistically. But what gives me hope is last week I saw the Broncos luck all over them with Phil Lindsay and Rolls-Royce with their offensive line, and that gives me a hope. If the Broncos offensive line can block for them, I feel like the Steelers offensive line should be able to block for James Conner. It does hurt that Jalen Samuels will be in here, but I am hoping for some big things out of Benny Snell. We thought on his first one, I just wanted to right carry. But regardless, to answer the question and go back to it, I'm looking for Randy Fichtner to open up with a run-heavy offense, also to try and help Devlin Hodges. I mean, I don't want them to run 3 times on their first drive, but I want to run heavy at least early, and then if it's not working, then you switch back to pass heavy and try your luck there. But what do you think about going into this game? What should Randy pick?
I agree with you. It's got to be up the middle, and we were just talking before we started recording about how first-round pick Jerry Tillery from Notre Dame has been maybe not bad, but he hasn't been great up the middle. And I think he can be had a little bit if he can get those big boys rolling downhill. And this is a game where maybe someone like Benny Snell could have a pretty solid performance as a relief back for James Conner whenever he has to come off the field. We've talked about running up and downhill, and we've seen the Wildcat used before on jet sweeps this year, but we haven't seen a ton of downhill running, and I think that we should see a little more of that this week. Try to push the Chargers around, and they're right around the middle of the pack when it comes to their pass rush, and they might be missing one of their better guys in Melvin Ingram this week. Even if he does play, he likely won't be at 100%. If you can get the ground game going a little bit, run some bootlegs off that. Devlin Hodges has some mobility, deceptive speed, and I feel like you can do that and get guys open just enough where you can hit them in stride, guys like Juju Smith-Schuster, and of course, Vance McDonald, Nick Vannett. I think this is going to have to be another game for the tailbacks and tight ends. And, as far as the receivers go, we talked about the dismal outlook outside of Juju Smith-Schuster. I think the first play of the game, if Dante Moncrief is going to play a lot, I might try to get Moncrief the ball just to try to get him over his yips. And, if it doesn't work, the problem is if it doesn't work, what do you do?
You're basically, you got to scheme in a lot of 2 tight end sets, and with Gentry probably going to be down, I mean, maybe they'll do Chuck Noll, but I'm hoping, I guess, you try to get your tight end more involved, get them on more to get 2 tight end sets, because I trust Vannett as a pass catcher, and I definitely trust Vance McDonald as a pass catcher. So if your wide receivers are really letting you down, that's how I'm rolling with it. And honestly, also, since Randy doesn't seem to want to give up the Wildcat, I think they might use that a little bit here, except without Jalen Samuels. I think they're going to use Ryan Switzer. I think that's how they're going to get Ryan Switzer a little bit more involved in this game. Because Ryan Switzer makes sense. He's a guy that can run outside pretty fast, and when he gets the ball from, that's like the position he gets the ball at anyway. I feel like he would be good at that. And then I mentioned it briefly, but he's the emergency quarterback as well, which means he does have potential to throw. And he threw 4 passes, completing 3 for 105 yards and 2 touchdowns. I feel like if the Steelers use a Wildcat there, that's how you get another wide receiver just involved. I think he's going to take Jalen Samuels' spot there. I wouldn't be surprised. to see it. Honestly, I think I'd be surprised to see anyone else there, because I can't think of anyone else.
Actually, Benny Snell played a lot of Wildcat at Kentucky, so I'd actually think it's going to be Benny Snell.
Oh, okay. Oh, you know what? Now that you say that, I do remember seeing that being talked about going into this game. So that might make sense. I'm still going to bet on Ryan Switzer. I think they're going to throw a little surprise in there, and I think they're going to have to find a way to get their wide receivers involved. There's no James Washington. They're going to have to get the ones that haven't been getting that many snaps involved somehow in some way. So it might switch off. It might be both.
I think what you could see is Switzer and jet motion, and then maybe, I know we were joking about it earlier, but maybe a jet motion where Switzer comes across the formation, takes the snap, and then throws it to somebody.
Yeah, we could see that kind of trickery since, I literally just learned, today that Ryan Switzer was going to be the emergency quarterback and that he even threw passes in college. I had no idea. But, if Mitchell Trubisky's your quarterback, I'd want other people to throw too, but that wasn't the case in college. But regardless, anyway.
Yeah, so, as we've been saying all year, the key for the offense is going to be sustaining drives, and that comes with third down conversions. The Steelers have converted 3 third downs in every game this year. They have to convert more. There's no other way about it. And with the concerns at wide receiver, I'm honestly kind of concerned about how the Steelers are going to be able to do that.
It is going to be rough. They were 3 for 12 in the first game, 3 for 11 in week 2, 3 for 12 again in week 3. Week 4 they were 3 for
9.
3 for 9. Yeah. So they got a little bit better last week. They got a 33% compared to the other ones, but instead of 25% and whatever 3 for 11 is, that's hard math. But regardless, they're going to have to be better than that. They're definitely going to have to, I think, complete 35% or higher. Actually, 35% is a little low. I'm sorry. So, I'll go up to 40 or 42% is what I'm hoping for in this game. I'm hoping Devlin Hodges is the guy that gives this offense a little bit of boost. The team rallies around him and somehow converts a little bit more. Maybe he'll be more efficient or something. That's what I'm hoping for. Anyway.
You're going to need some short fields, I think. And the good news is that the Chargers and Phillip Rivers have been prone to turnovers this year. And as we know, the Steelers have been forcing them left and right this year, unlike last year. The Chargers' offense, they did get a good player in Melvin Gordon back, but that offense lives through their running backs and Keenan Allen. How do you go about stopping them or at least slowing them down?
What I'm doing is I don't want them to throw. I want them to run because so far their running backs haven't been very good. The stats don't say that, but their yards per carry are pretty low. Austin Eckler I'm more worried about as a pass catcher. So like I said, I want them to be able to throw. So I'm trying my best. If Artie Burns needs help, I'm giving Artie Burns help. If they're struggling in the pass game, I think the Steelers lose here because we need this team to run. Melvin Gordon is going to get more snaps, and anything can change. We only saw Melvin Gordon play for about half of a game, really. They said this week he's going to get more carries, but still, even when he did play, he wasn't that good as a runner and was actually more effective as a pass catcher, in my opinion, because he just always has been. And so the whole idea here, and what I'm trying to say, is that you want to be able to somehow find a way to lock down their wide receivers and then control Eckler in the pass game. Eckler is nasty when he gets the ball in his hands, and he's a really good catcher. He's kind of like James White in New England, where he's maybe not the best running back, but he's essentially a wide receiver playing running back. And I really like him, but I think Devin Bush is a good matchup for him if you could have Devin Bush on him for a lot of time, because Devin Bush has that speed to keep up with him so he doesn't get too far up the field. I think this is the year that the Steelers got someone that they could deal with, a guy that could get to the outside. They have a guy that could race a running back to the outside and actually make it there. Ever since they lost Jazier, it's been rough with that. I think Devin Bush is going to be a heavy part of this game if they are successful. A reason why the Steelers would be successful is what I'm trying to say. But, yeah, you're definitely not going to get help from the refs in this game. the Chargers have been very efficient with penalties and stuff, so you're not going to see that in this game. They don't rank far behind the Steelers in penalties gotten. They only have 33 penalties this year. Steelers have 32. They have a little bit more yards, but so you're not going to get help in that factor either. It really feels like the Steelers haven't been helped by the refs anyway this year, but I just want to point that out as well, that you're not going to get these lucky breaks. And I mean, Keenan Allen so far has probably been the best wide receiver, definitely numbers-wise. Numbers-wise, he's the top wide receiver, but he's going to be tough to shut down. This is a game I really wish they had Steven Nelson so that no matter where Keenan Allen lined up, which side of the field, I feel comfortable. But every time I see Artie Burns matched up on Keenan Allen, I'm not sure it's going to happen. I'm sure Joe Hayden's going to try and challenge. I'm going to be a little bit clenched. I'm not going to feel good, but you just got to try your best to contain him and don't get beat over the top. Like this has been Artie Burns' biggest thing. Artie Burns just can't be beat over the top. This is another good thing. This is now Minka Fitzpatrick, so I feel a little bit better about that. That even if Artie Burns gets burnt, which has been most of his career, there's a safety there that can actually be effective and maybe help. So that's what I'm hoping for in this game. That's how I think the Steelers should handle their pass catchers and just all their pass catchers. Yeah.
Well, let's not forget that I think the Chargers are going to be throwing the ball a lot in this game. And I think part of the reason they're going to be throwing it and they're going to be throwing the ball quickly is because they just lost Marquise Pouncey's twin brother, Mike Pouncey, to a season-ending injury in his neck. It might be a career-ending injury. Hopefully it's not. Well, time will tell. But the Chargers have a weaker offensive line than most of the rest of the league, at least compared to the league average. And now they're going to be playing Forrest Lamp, it looks like, at center. This is a game where the Steelers' defensive front could easily overwhelm them, and I think the Chargers would have trouble getting the ground game established with these guys anyways. I think they know this, and they know that if they have their skill guys in open space, they're gonna feel better about that. So I think they're gonna get a lot of quick passes in this game. I think you'll see them spread the Steelers out. They'll use a lot of the pony sets where they'll have Melvin. I was going to say Melvin Ingram. Melvin Gordon in the backfield with Austin Eckler lined up on the outside with guys like Keenan Allen and Mike Williams on the outside. Maybe Hunter Henry. Hunter Henry would be huge to have back for this game for the Chargers because Eckler's their big, dangerous receiver. He's third in the NFL in receptions, by the way. Keenan Allen's crazy good on third down, and Hunter Henry can be a guy that moves the sticks as well. And then Mike Williams offers that big play potential. He doesn't have a touchdown yet this year, but I feel like Artie Burns is going to be matched up on him, which is always a big concern, while you're hopefully going to let Hayden travel against Keenan Allen, like you mentioned, Austin. So hopefully that's what you end up doing. And hopefully you've got a guy like Bush on Eckler, and then I don't know what you do about the tight end. I guess maybe you have to trust either Vince Williams or Terrell Edmonds with Hunter Henry.
I guess so. I mean, that's not ideal, but when there's nothing else you can really do here. I mean, maybe you get some special packages where you can get Cameron Sutton on the field and stuff and maybe take off Vince or something. I don't really know. It's going to be interesting to see how Keith Butler schemes around it. Keith Butler's actually done a decent job so far at scheming, making defensive schemes ever since getting Minka Fitzpatrick. So we'll have to see.
I'm playing a lot of press man coverage in this game. I know you have the chance to get beaten over the top, but I'm going to bank on my defensive front to try to get home, and if you can hold these receivers in check for just that extra second, I think that's all you're going to need to at least get to Phillip Rivers or make him throw a bad pass, because he's thrown, I think, 4 or 5 interceptions this year, and the Steelers have been great at taking it away. So I'm going to take my chances this week, and I'm going to come after him a little bit.
I agree with you, because I feel like with their whole offensive line being taken up a little bit, I feel like it's a double-edged sword. Yeah, they're going to want to pass, but are they going to be able to pass block now that they have some moving pieces? They don't have not Marquise, the other Pouncey brother. They have now Forrest Lamp, as you said, likely to be the starting center. I mean, it could be Dan Feeney, but it seems like everything points to Forrest Lamp is moving there. We'll have to see. We'll have to see if Javon Hargrave could take advantage, maybe inside linebacker blitzing, taking advantage, or maybe even some line shifting. We'll have to see. I agree with you, though. I think the press coverage is the best, and try and let your defensive line hit home, which they've all played really well this year. Cameron Hayward, Stephon Tuitt, even John Hargrave, even though he hasn't lit up the stats this year, they've all played pretty well.
I really do like the Steelers matchup on defense with the exception of two things. One of them is the Artie Burns lined up against whomever, and the fact that Phillip Rivers is back there and he's a Hall of Fame caliber quarterback. Now, that being said, I love the Steelers front against their front, and I like the rest of their secondary against just about anybody except for Keenan Allen on third down.
Yeah, man, that's going to be rough. Hopefully we don't see linebackers on Keenan Allen again this time. That was a big problem in the last matchup. So hopefully Keith Butler works around that this time.
Allen's going to get his catches one way or another. Would you, if I had told you he had 9 for 90 or 10, say he had 9 for 90 and a touchdown or 10 for 110 and no touchdowns, which would you rather take?
I'm going to say 10 for 110.
And no
Bet,
score.
but don't break.
Yep. Okay. Any other thoughts on the Chargers offense and what the Steelers defense might have to do?
I think we are good here. I think we're good with that portion.
All right, special teams. We already talked about Ty Long and Michael Bagley. Don't give up the return. We saw the struggles with the kick return unit last week, and we know last year Desmond King burned the Steelers on the punt return. You got to be better there. And then our kickoff return team, can they get it past the 12-yard line? These are the questions that must be answered.
I have high hopes. I feel like the Steelers got bolstered on special teams going into this game. I mean, they added Trey Edmonds and Anthony Chickalo's back. So I'm hoping they get better. I'm hoping to see better than that. They're not versing an elite punter this time. They're not versing, or a punter kicker, I should say. They're not versing the Cook and the Tucker of the world. It's just Ty Long. And honestly, I'm curious. I want to know who the Chargers' emergency kicker is. Like, who comes in, but who their emergency punter and kicker is. What if Ty Long gets hurt? I want to know. Like, do they just have, like, Phillip Rivers pooch kick it, like, the rest of the game, or what? But I don't think I'm going to have that answer ever. I don't think that's something I could just Google. That is something I'm interested in. But regardless, yeah, the kickoff team needs to be better. Otherwise, they just need to take a knee in the end zone every single time. Like, it's just, I feel like them returning has been detrimental to the team. Johnny Holton hasn't been good. Just everyone else hasn't been good either. I feel like it's best right now just to not let anyone return it. I haven't seen anything. But, I mean, if Ty Long could do what Justin Tucker did last week, where he got it right where the Steelers had to return it, there's nothing you can do. And you just have to hope that they play better. But I don't know. I'm not optimistic. The Steelers have had a bad special teams for a very long time now. And I'm hoping for Roosevelt Nix to come back because I miss Roosevelt Nix.
To be honest with you, I don't even think Chickalo or Nix or anyone coming back is going to make a difference because those guys have been on the kick return units for years, and it hasn't been a damn thing.
Yeah, I'm not sure it would have made a big difference.
You're moving the needle maybe. It would help, but you're moving the needle maybe, what, 2 yards? I mean, how much are they really going to help?
I don't know. Not a lot.
I think this is really Danny Smith's biggest true test, at least in this year, because we did mention he was having a pretty solid year as a coordinator this year, but this was a huge issue last week, and it's something that needs to at least have considerable improvement this week, starting this week, I think.
I agree.
All right, let's jump into Week 6 of NFL action, and then we'll wrap up this game, eh?
Sounds good to me.
Alrighty then. So, Thursday Night Football wrapped up. The Patriots got a backdoor cover 35-14 against the Giants and improved to 6-0 while the Giants fall to 2-4. I didn't see the end of this game, but I heard the Giants made a stupid decision to punt down 14 on like a 4th and 2. Some people were saying just for the optics of it so that they didn't lose by 21, and then the Patriots went down and scored a touchdown anyways.
Yeah, you hate to see it. I didn't see the end of the game either. I just know I saw it was 14-0. It was like, oh, yeah, this is 14-0 Patriots. I was like, oh, yeah, this is going to be a blowout. And then literally like 3 minutes later, I look and it's 14-14. I was like, what just happened? It was incredible. It looked like the Giants were going to actually just stick in it and play. The defense had their most complete game for the Giants, I think, in this game. And Tom Brady has continued to not look good. And it's really weird saying that the Patriots are still probably going to win the Super Bowl despite Tom Brady's play. The Patriots are just, they're a good unit. Their defense is absolutely amazing. And it just kind of hurts that the Giants were able to put more points up than the Steelers were. But, you know.
Yeah, so the Giants did play pretty well, all things considered. They put up a much better fight than I thought they would. You know, they played 3 solid quarters, and they were able to come back in this one, but the better team won out, and the Patriots defense is special right now. Then again, they've played one good team so far, and that offense of Buffalo is really not that good either. So, you know, we'll see if it'll probably inflate their statistics a little bit, but Tom Brady really has not looked the same since that playoff win over the Chargers back in January. In the games since then, he's been very kind of pedestrian. He's made the plays he's needed to, but he's had some really bad games by his standards lately. And I'd also like to mention that, what was it? Oh, I'm blanking. There was something I was going to say, but... Oh. Nope. I forgot. But it's kind of weird, like you said, that, like, we've gone over this metamorphosis where, you know, the Patriots went from a defense-first team to, you know, Brady spread it out and throw it, and now the last couple of years they're a big running team now. And, I know what I was going to say. So the performance by the Giants defense and the Patriots offense, what do you think it is? Do you think it's more showing of the Giants maybe turning it around, becoming a better defensive team, or do you think it's a bigger indictment on the Patriots offense?
I think a bigger indictment on the Patriots offense. So the thing that is, since the year started, the defensive offense has gotten pretty hurt, I would say. Not like crazy, but they lost Isaiah Wynn for 8 weeks now. There's just another shakeup on their offensive line. I forget what actually happened. I know Devlin, their fullback, which they utilize pretty often, he's on IR now.
They don't have N'Keal Harry either.
No, N'Keal Harry didn't start the year with him. Lost Antonio Brown after signing him. Josh Gordon has been basically on and off every week. It's just I feel like they've been injured. So I don't know if it's like actually if they're bad but I feel like injuries since week 1 have really wrapped up for them. Like fullback really isn't a position utilized anymore, but the Patriots are a team that really do use Devlin in several different ways. I felt like that injury hurt more than people would think.
Yeah, definitely. And they really, like we said, they really haven't looked the same on offense for a while now.
Yep, 100%.
All right, let's move to the London game starting at 9:30 a.m. The 3-2 Panthers, technically at the 2-3 Buccaneers. The Panthers are getting a 1.5 overseas.
I'm going to take the Buccaneers in here. I feel like the Buccaneers have been playing it pretty good the past couple weeks. I mean, granted, they lost to the Saints last week, but their game against the Rams is pretty good. And I don't know what it is, but for some reason the Panthers remind me of the Rams, and that's what I'm going with. I know that sounds probably really stupid because, I mean, the Rams have a really good offensive line. The Panthers don't have a really good offensive line. Kyle Allen and Jared Goff kind of remind me of each other. Christian McCaffrey is well outplaying Todd Gurley, but I don't know. They're just similar teams to me. Now, I feel like the Buccaneers could win this one. I feel like this could be a shootout early in the morning, and I feel good about the Bucs in this one. I say this, and the Bucs are probably going to get blown out. The Bucs have really screwed me in years past, but I'm picking the Buccaneers plus 1.5. How about you?
Let's not forget it was just a few weeks ago that the Buccaneers went into Carolina and upended the Cam Newton-led Panthers due to a fantastic defensive performance that limited one Christian McCaffrey. And while I feel like they can do that again, I'm reading an article that said Gerald Hawkins did practice at right tackle on Wednesday. Now, I don't know if he practiced there on Thursday or Friday, but just because of that and because I want to take a pick that's different than yours, I'm going to take the Panthers to cover that 1.5 for me. Just because, no offense to Gerald Hawkins, I love the dude, but I don't like, like you said, Mario Addison might eat him alive.
Yeah, you hate to see that, dude.
0-5 Bengals at the 3-2 Ravens. Oh, Baltimore is getting 11.5 at home. Is there any chance the Steelers can get a miracle win from the Bengals that can make this division look even more shittier than it already is?
I don't think so. I don't think the Bengals have it in them. I mean, we saw a pretty banged-up Steelers team destroy this team. I don't feel good about the Bengals going into this one, despite what I'm saying right now. I'm taking the Bengals plus 11.5 because I feel like the Ravens are also frauds, and I feel like they're not that good. Oops, sorry. What were you saying?
Please go ahead and finish.
It's just I feel like the Ravens are frauds, and despite them beating Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh blew out Bengals, it's not really how the NFL usually works. So I'm going to pick the Bengals to keep it close in the divisional matchup, at least within 11.5. I shouldn't say close. I think they might lose by 10. But what do you got?
Well, normally I would agree with you, and I do think the Bengals have a chance to keep it close just because it is a divisional football game. I don't know, man. I think about the Ravens' strong rushing attack, and I think about the Bengals' horrendously god-awful defense, and I don't, like, Andy Dalton and the Bengals could somehow put up, 20 points, 20 or 30 points. I feel like it's going to be hard for the Bengals to keep the Ravens under 40. So I'm going to take the Ravens, lay that 11.5 points for me, even though I for one, would not bet on this game. I'd stay away from this one.
I agree.
The Seattle Seahawks, coming off extended rest from an impressive Thursday night win over the Rams at 4-1, traveled to Cleveland. Russell Wilson's first game in Cleveland throughout his entire career, and they face the 2-3 Browns, who are licking their wounds after a beating at the hands of the 49ers in Santa Clara. The Seahawks are favored by 1.5, so Cleveland plus 1.5. How you feeling on this one?
I feel like the Seahawks are going to cover. I feel good about the Seahawks too, because it's just the Browns haven't played good, and the one thing that did worry me a lot is that both Seahawks starting tackles, offensive tackles, are not going to be playing, at least on the last I saw, which that hurts. So when you have to verse Myles Garrett like that, but like the Browns' offense has just been so inept that I can't bet on that, and I still bet on Russell Wilson being able to dodge every defender. So I'm picking Seahawks to cover. What do you got?
The Browns are weird. I feel like if you told me they ended up winning this game, I wouldn't really be surprised. This feels like it could be one of those teams that constantly flips, where they're having an impressive win or a devastating loss and back and forth all the time. I could see that, but I'm going to go with the devil I know in Russell Wilson, and I trust him and the Seahawks a little more right now. I don't know what I'm going to be getting from the Browns right now, and like we've been saying about the AFC North, it's not a good division, and I like the Seahawks' chances to go in there and just rough up the Browns. That front seven of the Seahawks against the Browns' offensive line, good Lord, look out. I'm actually kind of surprised it was only a 1.5 spread here.
I think it's really because of the tackles, man. Seahawks literally are without both their offensive tackles. That's rough. That sucks.
I still think it's kind of light. I think the Seahawks could win this in a blowout.
Oof.
I mean, we've seen the Browns have one impressive win this year. They looked like crap against the Titans. They looked like crap last week. They somehow managed to look like crap against the Jets, who were playing most of the game with Luke Falk. They managed to put up a ton of yards on the Ravens, who we now know have a terrible defense. I don't know, man. I would be worried. Part of me hopes I'm wrong, just because I don't want the AFC North to be so god awful, but I don't know. I'm not confident right now.
Baker Mayfield's got to play better. It's just simple as that. Because what I see in this game, right, is that the Seahawks don't have the cornerbacks to cover Odell Beckham and Jarvis Landry. They just don't. But the problem is Baker Mayfield hasn't played good enough that even matters. So I feel like if Baker Mayfield can just come on in this game, this could be an easy Browns win. The Browns team almost mismatches them. But like you said, they've just been bad back and forth, hit or miss. It's just, I feel like it's based on Baker Mayfield's play.
Definitely is, and the offensive line is doing no favors to help. One team with a questionable offensive line in Houston, traveling to Kansas City to take on the Chiefs, reeling after one surprising loss to the Indianapolis Colts. The Chiefs are getting 5.5 at home against the Texans. Is this Deshaun Watson, Patrick Mahomes matchup going to live up to the hype again? And are the Texans going to come out in front, or are the Chiefs going to rebound?
I'm going to have the Chiefs rebounding. I have Chiefs covering. I think Tyreek Hill is playing for this game. He is questionably at a limited practice all week. I think that he's going to be cleared to play, and I feel like they're the better team. What does suck is that Chris Jones is injured. I would feel even more comfortable if Chris Jones was playing against this offensive line, but unfortunately he will not be going. And the Chiefs are a pretty banged up team after this last game they just played. But still, I think they're a better team than the Texans. The Texans are a weird team. I don't know what to think of them. I just have the Chiefs covering. What do you got?
If this were in Houston, and if you had picked the Texans let me put it this way: if you had picked the Texans to win, or to plus the 5.5, I'd feel a lot better about this. I don't really know how I feel about this one. On one hand, I think the Texans and Deshaun Watson are going to play well, but I don't see the Chiefs losing a second game at home, even if Patrick Mahomes is hurt. So lay that 5.5 for me. I'll take the Chiefs to cover. The first Tank Bowl of the year, Austin. 0-9 combined between the Redskins with the new coach and Bill Callahan and the 0-4 Dolphins coming off a bye week. The Redskins are favored in this dumpster fire by 3.5. And, avert your eyes if you're watching this game.
Yeah, I sat there and contemplated this. I ran the math, and I just think that the Redskins are going to cover here. I think that the Dolphins are just a talent-depleted team, and despite the Redskins not looking good either, I still feel like the Redskins have more talent than the Dolphins. I just can't see the Dolphins winning a game this year. It's just really hard to pick for the Dolphins. They've only had one lead all year, and it was last week against the Chargers. So, not last week, I'm sorry, 2 weeks ago against the Chargers. They're just not a good team. They're not, and it's just really rough. So I got to pick the Redskins to cover, even though they're not a good team either. How about you?
I was going to take the Dolphins all week until I listened to an interview with Brian Flores, and the reporters asked him a question about if he had been given information from upper management regarding how to coach this year, and he didn't answer the question. Like, he said no comment or something. I forget exactly what he said, but he didn't necessarily address it. And because of that, it makes me, I know tanking doesn't really get down to coaching, but, when I heard that, it really made me think that the Dolphins are hella committed to this tank. And because of that, I'm going to take the Redskins to cover. You have any thoughts on that?
No, just I think you're right, my dude.
Tank Bowl 1 is soon to be underway. Matchup of 2 3-2 teams, the Eagles and the Vikings. Minnesota's getting 2.5 at home.
Don't like that. I'm not a big Kirk Cousins fan, as we all know. And I am a pretty big Carson Wentz fan. I do like Carson Wentz. I like my small school boys. I'm going to pick the Eagles plus 2.5 with the idea that they're winning. I think the Eagles are a more complete team. A weird team, because they really underperformed early on, but then they came back and beat the Packers. So I think the Eagles are better. The Eagles are definitely better on paper. I'm going to pick the Eagles plus 2.5. How about you?
The Vikings are home. We know they're a better team at home. This is one of those situations where, even though the odds are a little against Kirk Cousins, the game is being played at 1 o'clock and not anytime after 7:30 p.m. So I like the fact that the Vikings are playing a day game, and I think Kirk Cousins will play well in this game. And it's one of those games where he'll play well enough where the narrative will start to creep back up that maybe he's good enough, and then that'll lead to a disappointing loss down the road where we're like, wait a minute, he's actually not good. And I think the cycle will continue. So that's how I'm envisioning this going. So I'll take the Vikings late at 2.5. 4 and
Yeah,
1.
Kirk Cousins conundrum. That's what it should be called. The KCC.
It's been a cycle going back to his days in Washington. I mean, it's just this constant up and down. Right now, it just bottomed out with the Adam Thielen, Stephon Diggs stuff. So now we're going to start coming back up, and soon we'll eventually hit that peak where it'll spill over with the poor primetime loss. You know.
Yeah, man.
It is cyclical, as is life, as is the Saints. I was gonna go with something there, but I had nothing. So the 4-1 Saints are at the 2-3 Jacksonville Jaguars. The Jaguars are getting 1.5 at home. I'm kind of surprised about that, to be honest with you.
Yeah, Gardner Minshew's banged up. The team just hasn't really been playing all too well. I mean, they did decently. They've done decently. They got that. They got a 2-3 record, so they're doing okay. And they did get competitive with the Chiefs towards the end in Game 1. But I don't hide it. I really like the Saints. So, like, if the Steelers game isn't on, I like watching the Saints games. I like their team. And I'm going to pick the Saints plus 1.5. I like Teddy Two Gloves. So, what do you got?
I think the Jaguars have played well, but the Saints are a more complete team, and even though the Jaguars will keep it close, I like the Saints on the road, so plus 1.5 for me as well. Moving to the late slate of games on Sunday, the 1-4 Falcons take on the 1-3-1 Cardinals. The Falcons are getting 2.5 on the road. Is this a tank bowl, or are we a week away for these teams for it to be a tank bowl? I think this is bordering on another tank bowl.
It's borderline, but I don't think yet. I feel like if the Cardinals were at 1-4 too, it would be. But that one tie just gets them away from it. But regardless, this game was difficult on. I decided that I don't like the Falcons at all, so I picked the Cardinals plus 2.5. Falcons team is bad. It's really, really bad. They're about to fire their whole coaching staff. It feels like they're on edge. Devontae Freeman has not been good in quite some time. Julio Jones has disappeared this year, and Matt Ryan is throwing, I think this might be wrong. I heard that he's thrown as many picks through these few games as he did all of last year. The whole Falcons team is a mess. And then they obviously lost Cam O'Neal again this year. So I'm picking the Cardinals plus 2.5. Kyler Murray put up his best game last game. I think he keeps them up. Cardinals plus 2.5. How about you, my dude?
I agree with you. I have no faith in the Falcons whatsoever. They're on the road, and I'm ready for them to lose and pack it up and clean house in the front office, and maybe not the front office, but at least the coaching staff, and start anew. A changing of the guard is at hand. How sad. This team was in the Super Bowl and was so close to winning it just a couple of years ago.
Yeah, man. Super crazy.
The San Francisco 49ers at 4-0. Sorry, that's they're 5-0 now, right?
No, they're 4-0.
They are
had a bye
4-0.
week.
I forgot about that. So they're now traveling to Los Angeles, the Coliseum, taking on the 3-2 Rams. The Rams are getting 3.5 at home, coming off the long not bye week, but the Thursday night extended week of rest, if you will. This should be a good one. The Rams, if they lose, they're in deep trouble.
And I have that. I was kind of surprised to see the Rams. I would have picked the Rams -1. I would have had that as the thing, because I feel like the 49ers are a way better team, personally. But, I mean, I guess you could... It depends on how you view who the 49ers have beat up. The 49ers beat up the Buccaneers, the Steelers. They beat up the Browns really bad. And I'm forgetting the fourth team. You know who the fourth team is that they beat up?
I'm sorry, what was that?
See, I know that the 49ers beat up the Steelers, right? They beat up the Steelers, they beat up the Browns. And, oh wow. Well, now I lost the third and fourth team. What? Oh no, do you know who the 49ers have beat so far this year?
Well...
Oh, Buccaneers. Buccaneers was the one I had. I can't remember the fourth team who the 49ers beat, but it's just... Regardless, anyway, I'll figure it out in a second, but what I'm thinking is that they beat up the Bengals. Okay, yeah, they beat up the Buccaneers, Bengals, Steelers, and Browns. So you could possibly say the 49ers were faking it. The Browns haven't looked good. They've been hit or miss. The Steelers, that was with Mason Rudolph. So, how you want to look at that is up to you. The Bengals are a very bad team, but they blew them out. And the Buccaneers have been impressing as of late, and they won 31-17. It's really, it's up in the air. But the problem is, I feel like the Rams aren't a good team. I feel like the Rams, like, their jig is up. Like, the new McVay offense, like, that was last year, and that was that. So that's how I'm feeling. I'm picking the 49ers plus 3.5, but I won't be surprised if I'm wrong. I'm sticking with my first thing. I think I literally mentioned this last podcast, but the one bold prediction I made for the NFL coming in this year is that the Rams weren't going to win their division. And I stick with that. I felt like the Rams were going to fall off hard this year. And maybe they haven't fell off hard, but I feel like they're not doing as good as they were last year. But regardless, 49 plus 3.5. What do you got?
I still think the Rams have an excellent coach in Sean McVay. The extra time to game plan and prepare for a 49ers team coming off a short week. Do not forget also that former San Diego Fleet alumni Daniel Brunskill will be starting for the San Francisco 49ers, who will be without their top two tackles, Joe Staley and Mike McGlinchey, in this game. Good luck blocking that Rams defensive line. Good luck. It's not going to be an easy time. I think the Rams win this one, and the 49ers come back down to earth a little bit. They're still a really good team, but no offense to your man's Daniel Brunskill, formerly of the San Diego Fleet, but it's a tough matchup. I know he's not going against Aaron Donald in particular, but it's a tough matchup. You know, you're gonna have a lot of attention focused on Donald, which means you're gonna have Dante Fowler, and I know you don't love him, but he's a guy that can still play in this league, and it's a tough matchup for him.
Yeah, I see that.
Not to mention Kyle Juszczyk is also out, so I think that this is going to be one that brings the... Not to mention it's sort of an elimination game for the Rams in terms of the division. If they lose this game, they're done for the division as far as I'm concerned. So I think their back's against the wall at home. They'll come out and they'll play well, so I'll take the Rams to cover 3.5 points. 3-2 Cowboys at the 0-4 Jets. The Cowboys are 8.5-point favorites. Jets plus 8.5 at home. It looks like Sam Darnold's going to be back. Does this change your opinion at all?
I considered it. I thought that was a pretty sizable spread, but I think I would, if it was 8.5 and CJ Mosley was playing, I think I would have taken the Jets plus 8.5. But I think the Jets team is still bad. It's just that's the problem. Even with Dan Darnold, the team is just so incomplete everywhere with the injuries and stuff. And I can't say with confidence that even though the Cowboys started off the season by beating up on all these bad teams, and the Jets are just another bad team that I feel like the Cowboys can beat up on. So I'm going to pick the Cowboys to cover here. What do you got?
The New York Jets, with their third quarterback, went 28 offensive drives without scoring a touchdown. The Steelers had their third quarterback in and scored on that first drive with him in the game. This is a terrible, terrible team. They're going to get blown out, I think, by like 50. That's what I feel like. The Jets are a god-awful team.
Yeah, I agree. I really do. It's just the problem is I like Sam Darnold a little bit. So
I do too, but the rest of that team is terrible. We watched Le'Veon Bell try to single-handedly carry this offense 2 yards a pop for 3.5 weeks, and it doesn't work.
You're right.
All right, Titans at 2-3 at the 1-4 Broncos. Broncos are minus 2.5, which I was a little surprised about.
I was surprised as well. I'll take the Titans plus 2.5. I don't know who was making these spreads. I just don't agree.
I do understand why the Broncos are getting a little steam because they did win, but that's a tough defense against the Titans to play, and the Broncos don't have a good offense, so even with their backs against the wall, I'm going to take the Titans plus 2.5. Monday Night Football, the 2-1-1 Lions are at the 4-1 Packers. Green Bay's getting 4.5 in Lambeau.
This is tough. I feel like the Lions always keep it close with the Packers, so I was definitely considering the Lions plus 4.5, but I ended up with Packers covering anyway. It's really rough because I saw what the Lions almost did to the Chiefs and I now know that the Packers will be without Devontae Adams in this game. But I like Marcus Valdez-Scantling, and I think that the Packers still cover. I think they win just by like 6 or 5. Like, it's going to be close. 5 is a weird one, but I think 6 is what I'm really aiming for. I have Packers covering. How about you?
I would have that, except the Lions are coming off their bye week, which means they've had an extra week to prepare for this and get healthier. So I think the Lions are going to have an opportunity to at least keep this closer, and I think we'll win this game. So I'll take the Lions plus 4.5. NFL teams on a bye week this week include the Buffalo Bills and Indianapolis Colts, along with the Oakland Raiders in the AFC, and in the NFC, it's just the Chicago Bears. A couple bits of NFL news to get to. Number one, the Denver Broncos have extended fullback Andy Janovich to a 3-year deal worth $5.5 million. I'm about my fullbacks getting paid. I'm happy about that.
I'm surprised. I'm surprised they paid him before he's back from injury. But, yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that doesn't make much sense. But then again, not much of what John Elway does makes sense.
Yeah.
So we did talk about the whole Jay Gruden being fired from the Redskins after an 0-5 start. But, rumors were coming out that Dan Snyder likes Mike Tomlin. Not that he was even going to ask him or ask to trade for him or anything. But the ball got rolling in Pittsburgh with Yinzers. And now, he dismissed it, but now I just have to wonder, who would even want this job in Washington with an owner that clearly does not seem to be that committed to winning, or at least not doing a good job of it?
It is pretty rough, dude. At least the Dolphins have, okay owners. The Redskins, everyone says the Redskins won't change until the new ownership, so it really is a very unattractive job to want to take. I mean, maybe you take it based on the players, because it's not as bad as the Dolphins team that Brian Flores took over for. But, I mean, I don't know, man. I really, really don't know who would want this job. Maybe McCarthy.
Oh, that's interesting. I haven't heard Mike McCarthy's name in a while, but we'll see at the end of the year, of course. All right, X Factors and bold predictions. Austin, you go ahead and go first. Give me your first, unless if you want to go second. I forget the order in which we were doing these because we had to do 2 preview episodes solo here.
Yeah, it don't matter. I'll go first, you take, and then you do your 2, and then I'll do my last one. So I'm going offense first. I'm picking Dante Moncrief. I feel like it's going to be his first game back. He'll be active. He's got to be stepping up and playing a little bit. I'm going to make him my X Factor with no expectations, but if he can actually catch a ball, it's going to make a difference. Surprise, surprise. If a wide receiver catches the ball, it's a good thing. But, so that's my offensive X Factor. There are 2 X Factors.
I'm going to start with offense. I'm going to go with James Conner. You got to get the ball rolling in this one, and the ground game has been relatively disappointing this year. Now, I say relatively, it's been really disappointing. Now with Jalen Samuels being out for an extended period of time, you're looking at James Conner needing to be the lead guy with a little bit of Benny Snell sprinkled in here and there. I'm going to want a big game out of James Conner. He needs to be a good receiver, a good runner, and a good pass protector in order to protect Devlin Hodges in this one. And for defense, I'm going to go with Artie Burns. I mean, look, this is his last chance in the NFL, as far as we can tell, as far as the starting job with the Steelers go. He's had limited opportunities in the last calendar year since he originally got benched, and he hasn't looked particularly great in any of them. His time is up, and if he wants to survive in the NFL, he needs to show out in this game. And obviously, if he doesn't perform well, the Chargers are going to be going after him all game. So Artie Burns is my defensive X Factor. James Conner is my offensive X Factor.
Okay, so going to my defensive X Factor, I was already trying to say his name. His name is Minkah Fitzpatrick. I think that he's going to be the difference maker in this game. He wasn't here last year, obviously. He wasn't even here for the beginning of the season. But I think he's going to be the difference maker. I think he's going to be the guy that's helping Artie Burns. And I think that he's going to be the one that will shut down Keenan Allen. I mean, what really surprised me last week is that the Broncos were able to shut down Keenan Allen 4 times for 18 yards, which is really good for a group that's been struggling. They don't have the best corners anymore, and besides Chris Harris Jr. So I think that Minka Fitzpatrick's going to be the difference maker in shutting down both Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, being the one that helps Artie Burns when he gets messed up. So, with that being said, what are your bold predictions? I'm sorry.
All right, so I'm doing my bold predictions off my X Factor, starting with James Conner. I think he ends up with 150 total yards and a touchdown, and that might not seem like a bold prediction, but based on the way this offense has performed this year, it is. And for the defensive X Factor, Artie Burns, he's not going to get flagged for defensive pass interference, which is like what he does. And he's going to have 2 pass breakups, so come holler at your boy when he doesn't do that, because he's definitely still going to get flagged for DPI.
Yeah. For me, I'm going to have something similar. If Moncrief catches all his targets, it's going to be an interesting one, to say the least, because it doesn't matter if Devlin Hodges throws off target. Moncrief is going to be magical and make a diving catch. So that's my first one. Then my second one is that Minka Fitzpatrick gets 2 interceptions this week as Bill Rivers tested too much. I think that those are my bold predictions. So what's your final score prediction?
Well, look, I'm not in love with the Chargers, the way their team is playing right now, all the injuries that they've sustained. But I'm just not, I don't know. I think about the Steelers offense, and I have a hard time thinking that they're going to be able to put up a ton of points here in this one. So I'm going to have the Chargers winning 24-14, and they're going to be covering a 6.5 point spread. The best case scenario for the Steelers is you get some turnovers forced on defense, and you finally convert those turnovers into touchdowns. I think that's your best chance in this one. I'm sorry, it's tough. Going out on the West Coast with a guy who played at Samford, has never played on the West Coast, it's a lot to ask. And I think he will play well, but finding the end zone is the key, and that's something that the Steelers' offense has struggled to do all season, no matter who the quarterback has been.
I'm going to agree with the Steelers' loss there. I have the Steelers losing 28-24, so a little bit closer and a lot more points. I'm basically betting on Devlin Hodges actually being solid. I liked what I saw for the 8 passes he made. 8 passes he attempted, he made 6. Last. I don't think it's enough. I don't think it's enough to win. I think that it is enough to keep it within 6.5. This line has actually changed. It was 4.5. I think it opened at 4.5, went up to 5.5, and then now it's at 6.5. So it's I guess from the beginning I would have had the Steelers plus 6.5, but I feel a little bit more confident that that's such a big spread. Like I Steelers still lose here, but I at least I think, because like you said, it's a West Coast game. The Steelers are not good at West Coast games. It's just how it works. So, but I still have the Steelers plus 6.5.
What are we saying if the Steelers are able to pull off a win here and go into their bye week at 2-4?
Obviously, Devlin Hodges is the next coming of Jesus Christ himself.
There's no chance of a quarterback controversy here, right?
No. I mean, users will make it if that's what happens. If Devlin Hodges comes out and is the second coming of Jesus Christ himself, goes for 400 yards and 4 touchdowns, everyone's going to be like, it's duck season, boys. It's duck dynasty. But it doesn't matter. I think he could go for 600 yards, and that Mason Rudolph's the quarterback.
What if he lays an egg?
Lays an egg? Well, this is why you start Colin Kaepernick. Or this is why you sign Colin Kaepernick. That's what we're going to get from PST.
Okay, so that wasn't a funny joke. I'll make sure that I write that down. Not funny.
Yep. I got it. No,
you got
funny.
it? You got it? No, it wasn't. It wasn't. But yeah, no, if the Steelers come out at 2-4 here, you get the Dolphins out of the bye. The season is still grim, I think, and it depends what happens with the Ravens and Browns. But at 2-4, and if you're looking at a favorable matchup coming out of the bye against the Dolphins, that's not the worst situation to be in. Now, again, a lot has to do with the rest of the division, but you could be looking at 3-4 2 weeks from now if you manage to get this win on Sunday.
Yeah, it's not completely gone. The Ravens came back from 3 games down last season. Why can't the Steelers, I suppose? So, and the Ravens have it tough for at least 2 games. Browns also have it pretty tough going forward. Could be interesting.
Time will tell, of course, but in the meantime, if you have any questions about the show or the Steelers, feel free to direct them to our email, which is strongerthansteelpodcast@gmail.com. Check out our various social media platforms, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, SoundCloud, and Instagram. You can find all that on our website at strongerthansteelnfl.blogspot.com. Thank you so much for joining us today, and Austin, thank you for joining me today, and y'all have a great night.
Have a good night.